Hello, friends, and welcome into another NC Family Weekly update for this week ending Friday, January the 23rd. Alongside the Trustee Council at NC Family, Jerry Royal, I'm Mitch Prosser. We've got a lot to get to today, as we normally do. So let's jump right into some things that we've covered in the past that we need to continue to talk about because of some court rulings and things like that. As you heard back in November of 2025, we talked a little bit about redistricting, what that looked like, the difference between the first district and the third district. Just as a refresher, Jerry, for those of you that were paying attention then, but then Christmas kind of did all the things it did. Just as a reminder, they took some counties out of the first and the third and swapped them to make them more politically advantageous. We'll talk more about that in just a second. But just as a refresher, those counties that were taken from North Carolina's 3rd District and moved to the 1st were Beaufort, Carteret, Craven, Dare, Hyde, and Pamlico. And those that were taken from the 1st District and moved to the 3rd District were Greene, Lenoir, Wayne, and Wilson. So Jerry, tell us kind of what that makeup looks like, and then some of what you remember from back during the debate over this bill.
And, as you mentioned, Mitch, this was action taken by the legislature to redraw district lines. And, of course, there was debate and controversy about this. What was happening is North Carolina currently, in our congressional delegation in the U.S. House of Representatives, have 10 Republicans, 4 Democrats.
14 in total,
14
for those of you
total.
That math isn't your goodest either.
And as we've seen right now in Congress, the votes are very close.
Yes.
There is a majority of Republicans, but the votes are very close. And so what people have been looking at in various states are how they can change some of their district lines to make the representation, whether they be primarily Democrat or Republican states, to move those lines to the advantage of one party or the other. In North Carolina, what this was they looked at the map of North Carolina, how the voting goes, and with all the technology today, it's a very precise, or some pretty precise science. And they realized that these were 2 districts where the Republicans, being in control of the legislature, could move some of the lines to cause an area that was more Republican to be a little less Republican, and then take an area that had a stronger Democrat vote and make it lean more Republican. That's what all this movement, all this debate was about. I know you said we want to get more into the details of why and how the courts have ruled about the challenges that were made.
So when this went through, there was a lot of Democratic opposition. And to go back a step further, I believe, to the best of my recollection, it was California that kind of launched this, and they were trying to draw 5 seats toward Democrats, which, as you said, with the razor-thin majority and the makeup of the current House of Representatives at the federal level, 5 seats could be a major swing. And by the way, in case you're wondering, most political experts are telling us that there are only about 30 of 435 seats that are truly competitive. And North Carolina's 1st District, held by Congressman Davis, is considered really the only competitive seat in the Southeast, certainly in North Carolina. This has changed that. Right. I remember back in November, there was a lot of conjecture about why this happened. Of course, the Democratic opposition to the bill said that it was on racial lines. Right. Now, the Supreme Court has ruled, and we've long known, that people were not allowed to draw district lines based on racial demographics. Right. There are so many of a certain race or color or creed of people in a district, and so that has been ruled on, or we've known it. The Supreme Court has recently ruled and thrown some cases out. This bill was enjoined by 2 different lawsuits nearly immediately after it was passed by the state legislature. And one was Williams v. Hall, and the other was NAACP. Pardon me for the slip. The NAACP versus Berger. So Williams v. Hall and NAACP versus Berger.
All right.
What's the status now of
Okay.
those suits?
So like you say, the purpose of both those suits was to try to stop these lines from being
Yes.
moved to enjoin what the legislature had done. These suits have been unsuccessful, and as you said, as of the end of last week, the plaintiffs who brought these suits not only have, withdrawn the lawsuits and their technical language about what the wording is about what actually happened. One of the interesting parts of what I read about the agreement was that the parties also have agreed to pay some of the cost of the legislative leadership
That's
defending
remarkable.
themselves in lawsuit. That was part of the debate, is why are we doing this again? It's only going to end up in the courts. Well, typically, whatever party is in the majority has taken this action over time, and the party in the minority has brought legal action. In this case, it is puzzling looking at this after the fact. As you say, the North Carolina Supreme Court and the U.S. Supreme Court have said that it is constitutionally allowed to have partisan gerrymandering.
Yes.
As you said, it cannot be done based on race, but in this case, and it was said clearly when this was being presented, as we mentioned earlier in conversation, the leadership and people in the House and the Senate said, this decision, these lines are being drawn for partisan purposes. And you look at what they've done, the counties you mentioned, that's what's happened. They move things around. The bottom line of what they were pursuing is to move that from 10 Republicans and 4 Democrats to 11 Republicans and 3 Democrats. A side note too, Mitch, what you mentioned, some of the debate was, who started this? Some people said California. Some people said Texas.
Yes.
Well, a number of states have tried to do this
Yes.
because, again, they're trying to anticipate the upcoming elections and which way Congress is going to go as far as the majority. So even though in North Carolina this is just one seat, that one seat in the scheme of all of the U.S. House of Representatives can be critical to how the votes go on various issues.
Well, for those of you that are political junkies out there, the first district was what was considered basically a D1, certainly within the margin of error when it comes to polls and things like that. If you're not familiar with that, basically means that it would be something like a 50.5 to 49.5 split, but in favor of the Democrats. They drew that so that it was about a R4, or what should be about a 52-48 victory for Republicans. But in doing so, they moved the third district, which was in the safe Republican category, something like an R9, to about an R4 or 5. Civitas partisan index helps us with those numbers, thanks to our friends there at Civitas. I think it's very interesting. Don Davis has said he is running, the current seat holder in the first. He is running for the first seat. He filed and is running. The third, Greg Murphy, said he is running. He is not moving. He is not he is running. And so those two men are very concerned, along with all of their primary opponents, as this election season ratchets up. Before we get to election season, though, there's still the North Carolina General Assembly. And they have set aside time, as you've pointed out on previous videos, update videos, that they've set aside a time every month to come in and look at things and possibly get a budget or not. Tell us what's going on at the General Assembly building for this month and possibly the months ahead.
Yeah. Other than moments like when they voted on this redistricting, the General Assembly has not been voting for a number of months now. However, committees have been meeting.
Yes.
And really one of the hopefully encouraging signs about the legislative process, a number of these committee meetings are pointing out some budgetary needs in various areas of our state government. And so I know we've been hearing, and it looks like that really is going to be the case, that as far as the next time they'll be voting, it might be the end of April. April 21st is when they're scheduled to come back into session for the short session. They are scheduled to come back to Raleigh in February and March and April prior to that April 21st
Yes.
date. But at this point, because of the history we've seen in recent months, it looks like they're just going to be committee meetings happening until that April 21st date.
And you and I have both heard, our team has heard multiple accounts from people, both from the dais of these committee hearings and in conversations. They're most likely not going to have any voting sessions until one key important date, which we're going to talk about now, and that is March the 3rd. We're hearing that they will come back in April. If you're doing the math on your calculator, calendar, or both, April comes after March. And so most likely not going to have any votes after the votes for the primary. Jerry, you've got some key important dates for us to know about this primary and then general election season, the midterm season. What are those dates and what do we need to know about them?
And this is what's important. Here we are approaching the end of January. The deadline for registering to vote is February 6th. February 12th is when early voting starts, leading up to the March 3rd primary.
Wow.
So this is an important election. Obviously, all elections are important. And just as a note, I know I try to remind myself, and a way for us to remind each other, by God's grace, we live in a state and nation where we're allowed to vote. We're seeing around the world where other governments, things are different. This is part of, as Christians, how we can love our neighbor. The decisions that are going to be made by the people who are elected affect us and our neighbors. And so it's an important part of how we can love our neighbors is being involved. So we encourage all of you, and I imagine if you're listening, you obviously are engaged.
Yes.
But to encourage people you know, if they haven't registered, to register to vote, and then to vote in the primary as well as in the general election, which will be in November. But the primaries, because of the way district lines are drawn today, sometimes that is the ultimate outcome of certain elections. So it's an important time that we're coming up to.
So practical implications of this, you've got about 2 weeks before the deadline to register to vote. So if you or your family members haven't registered to vote, make sure you register to vote for biblical values, because we certainly are a nonpartisan organization, but understand that biblical values are so important when it comes to what we vote for and how we vote and who we vote for. Then, just a week later, the 12th of February, early voting, and of course, less than 2 months from now will be the primary elections for many people across the state of North Carolina who are running for office. Well, a lot going on there, Jerry.
And those are local, state, and federal elections. And you can go to the North Carolina State Board of Elections website now and see your ballot.
Yes.
Who will be on there, so you can start informing and educating yourself about the candidates.
I noticed yours is on your sample ballot.
I did.
How about that?
Made a copy of it so I can start looking, because some of these races, I'm not, especially the local ones, not as familiar with some of the candidates. So it's a good time to start doing our homework.
If you can't tell, we're policy and political nerds around here, which is why you support the work that we do here at NC Family. And we're so grateful for your support to ensure that our state and nation truly are places where God is honored, religious freedom flourishes, families thrive, and life is cherished. That's why we exist here at North Carolina Family. That's why we do the work that we do here. And we're so grateful for you partnering with us. To learn more about the work we do, you can go to our website at ncfamily.org. That's ncfamily.org. And you can find all kinds of action alerts. You can sign up for email updates. You can learn more about all of the articles, podcasts, magazines that we want to put in your hands as tools so that you can be informed, because if you're not informed, you can't do anything about it. So thank you for watching this week's update video for the week ending January the 23rd. Jerry, thank you for your words today. Some great wisdom imparted to us today. Thank you for watching. We hope that you have a wonderful and safe weekend with the winter weather ahead. God bless each and every one of you.